Hey there everybody, hope you all are doing well, and I hope that you're as excited as I am to actually get your hands on UI Goku. He's got a ton of interesting and unique things about him, so I'm sure that you guys will find him fascinating and have a ton of fun playing him. This video is going to be going over every single one of his moves, showing the frame data on it, and kind of elaborating on what things you can use when, why they're good, why they're not, and so forth. So with all that being said, let's get right into it. So starting off, we are going to have Ultra Instinct Goku's 5L. This 5L is going to be an advancing normal, meaning that it will move you a bit forward. Now it does not reach mid-screen all the way, however it still does move you a fair bit forward. The important thing to note here is that it is negative on block, so keep that in mind if you're trying to do any sort of staggers. The 5L is going to leave you negative. It does push you a good bit back, especially depending on if you're a little bit further away to start off the move. As you can see here, moving about mid-screen from the corner. Just be mindful of that whenever that you're using this attack. Up next, we are going to have UI Goku's 2L. Like most 2Ls that hit low in the game, this is going to have 7 frame startups. Unlike a bit of them though, this is going to be advancing, meaning that you can actually kind of stagger with it, or if you're in the corner and you do something like a super dash, you can call assist and then just go right into 2L and not have to worry about that whiffing. Now this is actually going to be safe on block, unlike his 5L, as you can see there, -4 in comparison to the -9. So this move is going to be really great for mix-ups whenever that you have the opportunity to do so, and also can give you that little bit of extra range whenever that you need it. Next, we're going to take a look at UI Goku's 5LL. That is going to be the second hit of the auto combo and is going to be an advancing normal. It is going to cover quite a bit of distance between the 5L into the second part of that, and it is actually going to be a low crush, in that if the opponent throws out a low attack, then it is going to stuff that starting on the 5th frame. Now, this move is also going to actually be safe on block, meaning that you could actually stop your block string right there if you wanted to, and be safe from any sort of attack that the opponent is going to throw out. The final hit of the auto combo is actually going to be a grab. Now, with that being said, this of course is not going to work if the opponent is in any sort of block stun. You could possibly make it work with really low block stun assist, something like Trunks. Now, the good part about this move though is that it actually does side swap. So if you're trying to do some sort of vanish combo or anything like that, then you do get that side swap and you're able to possibly keep the corner if you're trying to get out of it. Moving on to Goku's mediums, we're going to start off with the 5M. So 5M actually has 2 hits to it. This first part that kind of reaches and hits mid, and then the second part, which is the follow-up, and hits low. This move is also going to be safe on block, and it does, as you can clearly see here, reach from round start, so it does have a good bit of range to it. Startup being 10 frames, it's a decent startup, but considering that it reaches as far as it does, and you can actually jump cancel either one of those hits whenever that you're in sparking, so you see there the first hit, you can just jump cancel out of that, or you could wait for the second part and then just jump cancel afterwards. This can make it actually a pretty good mix-up tool where you could actually let the first hit go and then go straight into maybe like a sit-sem, meaning that the opponent doesn't know whether you're actually going to hit them high or low for that. Up next, we have UI Goku's 2M, which is going to be a bit slower of a medium for the startup. Now, point blank, it will be 13 frames. When you think of most mediums that hit low, maybe you're thinking of something like Bardots, which is 10 frames. There are a few characters that have a little bit slower of a 2M, but this one is going to definitely be one of them. Now, this move does move him a little bit forward, so you do have the range, but this is not going to be your go-to. This is going to be something that you're just using in block strings, not something that you're using to challenge. Up next is going to be UI Goku's Heavy, which is going to move him a decent bit forward. It actually doesn't move him as forward as you might think it does. If we do like a full screen comparison, moves maybe 1/3 of the screen, definitely not halfway across. But it actually does have a decent hitbox if you were to have the opponent say jump and you were to throw that out. It does hit actually pretty high on that. Obviously, it's not going to be like an anti-air or anything like that. The bright side to this move is that it will actually move the opponent very, very far. So if you were to do some sort of combo and go into the heavy, that is where you really get the distance for traveling, because you do get the movement forward and then you also get a launcher horizontally. So this is going to be very good for going corner to corner. Next up is going to be UI Goku's 2H. This 2H will only have the first hit come out on the majority of the cast. However, if you are dealing with somebody who's a little bit of a bigger body and they are standing up, then you will actually be able to get the second hit. Now, it is important to note that if you have the opponent crouching, even if they are a bigger body, then the second hit will always whiff. Now, this does put you in the airborne state, and this sort of has its uses where you can kind of use it as a mix-up tool if you have the right assist. Maybe you do like a full block string into a heavy 2H, and then you could go like an IED for high or low. Something along those lines, that is a possibility. Now, whenever that they do take the hit, you actually do get the second hit of the 2H right there. Now, be very careful when you are using this, because it is possible for you to get the first hit, super dash right away, and then you can mess this up. So whenever that you do get the confirm on the 2H, make sure that you do let both hits rock so that you don't have the combo drop. Next up is going to be UI Goku's very cool, unique, and possibly controversial move, his Sits H. So his Sits H is going to be an incredibly strong counter which starts up for the invincibility on frame 4. So there are many other counters in the game that also share similar properties, one of them being Jiren, where unless you do his EX counter, which is frame 1, his standard counters are going to start up on frame 4. So with that being said, this will teleport you across the screen and be able to appear right behind the opponent. And then the very good part about that is you will also be able to punish the opponent if they even tried to vanish out of that. So you can do this against beams if the opponent decides to throw out one of those. And it should also be noted that this will also work in the air. Now, when used against somebody that is in the air, UI Goku will teleport to them, so depending on the move exactly, you may or may not be able to get a punish because of the way that the teleportation is going to work, but nonetheless, this is going to be an extremely strong neutral tool. And if you have been following the UI Goku news, I'm more than sure that you all are aware that UI Goku can indeed just walk forward and negate those ki blasts. As you can see there, the invincibility property is showing that walking forward does negate all of those ki blasts. Another very unique thing that UI has is he actually has a interesting tech option that other characters do not. If you hold down the Dragon Rush button, you actually can kind of do a reversal and it will hone in on the opponent. So this is going to lead to very tricky situations that if the opponent tries to be extremely aggressive and go for a meaty, mistimes that or anything else, then you can possibly turn that around on them. Next up, we have the air normals. So all of the air normals are going to be pretty standard. You're going to have your jump light. Now this is going to be a very straightforward punch, meaning that it will have some decent range, and of course is going to have a reasonable amount of startup. So 6 frames at that, you're looking at a pretty good reaching normal here. After that, we have the jump medium, which is going to be 11 frame startup and actually reach a fair bit away. Now, it's nothing like a sword normal that probably has a disjointed hitbox, at least that I can tell so far, but this is going to still be pretty good for reaching out to opponents. Now, the good thing is that whenever that you have the opponent in block stun, is that normally when you do staggers or you do anything else, a lot of the jump mediums may whiff on opponents depending on if they hit really high or something like that. But UI Goku's actually hits pretty deep, so you will be able to actually force the opponent to actually have to block that. Another good example of a character that actually whiffs is going to be someone like Bardock, where a lot of people do this and then they just whiff and then they go empty jump low. After that, we have the jump heavy. Gonna be pretty standard, a little bit shallow, you could argue, for the range. Doesn't really reach out too far like some other characters, so keep that in mind whenever that you are trying to possibly reach the opponent a little bit further away. You definitely want to resort to using the actual JM in comparison to the JH. Of course, you'll still use this for safe jumps and whatnot, but just keep that in mind. And then finishing it up for the air normals, we have the J2H. This will carry some forward momentum with it. Something very important to keep in mind with that being said is that you can actually get a side swap by just waiting it out and letting the momentum from UI Goku carry him over. Now, you can't do this if you start off with the 2H because you actually hit the opponent very far away. However, if you have a combo like this, you can just wait a moment and you'll see that the momentum carries him forward and you're able to actually keep your jump as well. So that'll be very useful if you're coming out of the corner and want to put the opponent back into it, so just keep that in mind. Next up is going to be UI Goku's 5S. So this is going to be a sort of like beam type move, but it's not necessarily a beam in particular. And how do we know that? Well, if you were to compare it to a Ki Blast thrown from Bardock, you can see that it does negate the Ki Blast, however it does not punch through it or do anything else. Now in comparison, Jiren actually negates the Ki Blast and then the projectile actually continues, so Jiren actually has a better version of that. Now on the bright side for UI Goku is that he does have an air version of this, which is going to still stop something like a Super Dash, which Jiren cannot do. So he does have a little bit better version of it, but it's only going to be when it's in the air. But don't worry, the ground version as well also does stop Super Dashes. So keep that in mind whenever that you are dealing with things like a Kamehameha or Masenko or anything like that. You may think that you are going to beat that type of projectile, but I promise you that you are not. The other projectile, if it comes out in time, is actually going to beat out your 5S. 2S is going to be basically the same thing as 5S, except it is going to fire full screen and at a very good angle going straight into that corner. Now this is going to still have the same flaw regardless of it looking like a little bit different projectile. It still will lose to those projectiles if you actually hit them at the same time. Next up is going to be Sits S. So this is going to be forward and the Ki Blast button, and you're going to get this interesting move. Now, the kind of cool thing about this is that starting on frame 4, in the way that for other counters, you are going to actually have Ki Blast invulnerability. So right there you kind of saw all of these Ki Blasts kind of getting pushed away. Now, of course, the downside to this is that you are locked into this move, so you're not going to be able to block if you do start this move up. But this will be something that's going to be a little bit interesting for combo usage. So whenever that you use this in a block string, if you're going to be doing so, there is going to be a 12 frame gap between the time that you actually hit the opponent and the time that the Ki Blast actually comes out. So please keep that in mind and don't just let people get away with this if they're letting the whole entire move rock. However, since it is of course 6S, you can go and cancel into another special move like a quarter circle. And real quick, if this video is helping you guys out, I would greatly appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up and also make sure to subscribe for more future Dragon Ball FighterZ content. Finally, we are into the special moves. UI Goku has a plethora of special moves. To start it off, we are going to be looking at Godly Display. Now, Godly Display is going to be a sort of lariat type move where he moves forward and will cross through the opponent. Now, if it's on block or if it's on hit, the move is still going to cross up either way, and the versions of the move being the light version, the medium version, and then the heavy version will all have different types of startup. So the light version and the heavy version are going to have that 16 frame startup. Of course, the heavy version is going to go a bit further than the light version here, and the medium version is always going to go full screen. Now, they do have invulnerability, but the invulnerability is going to take place a bit later into the startup, so this is not going to be something that you are going to be able to use on reaction to be able to counter something like a beam. So if you see the opponent maybe start up like a Ki Blast or something like that, you're definitely better going into the 6H if you're trying to counter it. Now, this move is pretty good for the frame advantage. It is going to be -2, so you're not positive here, but it is still going to be good if you do this and then call an assist on the bat side or something like that. Of course, since you do cross up, you need to be a little bit careful for if you're wanting to actually cross up in the corner, so if you have it like that, and if you want to cross back over, but the frame advantage of it is pretty good and keeps you very safe. Now things are going to get a little bit interesting because we are going to have a bit of moves that we're going to look at here, but they're all connected in some way. So the first thing that we're going to look at is Godly Strike, which is going to be in the air, then Transcendence and Embodied Light. So all of these are going to be a quarter circle back, which is 2-1-4, and then light, medium, heavy, and then we are going to look at those versions on the ground as well. So the air versions of these are going to kind of work in a little bit different ways. You see here that even if you jump, you kind of have this teleportation up to a certain point to the opponent that is going to hit them. Now this move is going to be plus on block. Obviously it has a lot of startup time though, and it also can be anti-aired. Now the medium version of this is going to teleport to the opponent regardless of where they are. Now of course the range may vary as far as for the horizontal distance, but if you are close enough to them horizontally, then this is going to actually function as a grab. Obviously with all grabs, be very careful if the opponent is going to be pushing buttons, and the H version now, despite what you just saw, is actually going to only work right in front of you. So this is going to be something that if you're pretty good at it, you can kind of sniff out super dashes and be able to get a combo for that. Now keep in mind that it is not fully invulnerable, as mentioned, that you can still get hit by it if you call it a little bit too late. So you will need to call it a little bit in advance. However, if you are able to call it in time, then you will be greatly rewarded for that. Now, how does this kind of tie into what we saw for the other moves and with it not being on the ground? Well, you can kind of go into the moves on the ground as well, but there's additional properties that are not in the air rather. So here, you also kind of have that jump up, and then you have the plus frames for the punch as well. Now, what you did see earlier was that it was saying to actually hold the button, which if we do that, then we kind of have a dash. Now, the very interesting and kind of cool part about the ones on the ground is that they actually have Ki Blast and Vulnerability. So right here, you can see that we can actually just dash right through that. Now, I apologize because I actually misspoke for just a second. I said Ki Blast and Vulnerability, but this is actually full projectile and vulnerability. So here we have Vegeta about to do a level 3. And if you're able to react in time, I don't know if you saw how long it took for me to actually get hit there, but we flipped through a good portion of that. This is going to be an extremely strong tool, obviously, since a lot of people like to use Ki Blast and beams, but also the fact that it actually goes through level 3s is a pretty impressive property. Other things that you can kind of combo this with, or rather other aspects that you can kind of use for this, is that you can actually go from one flip into another one, but it kind of depends on what starter you do. So if you were to start off with the 214L, then you could hold that, and obviously kind of have this dash forward, which is what we were showing you earlier going through the actual final flash. Now, if you were to do the medium version of this though, and hold the button, then you're going to get a lot longer of a dash. And then depending on when you let it go, and then you may or may not get the grab for it. So, with that being said, let's do this again. And you can see that we actually made it all the way through. The heavy version of this is going to be similar to the air version of this and going to just be a follow-up right here with full invulnerability. Now the air version of it though did grant a wall bounce, I'm sure that you saw, and the grounded version is actually going to create this extremely long knockdown state. So this knockdown state is very interesting because of the way that you can actually do certain things from it. So if you do not use a move like his second hit of his auto combo or the 2M with it, then they can actually block. However, this leads to a very interesting situation since you can go for a restand. Now, a restand is basically going to be where the opponent is actually not in the combo anymore, is still standing up, but you can kind of create a mix-up scenario for it. Kind of a simple explanation for that. So let's set that up one more time. So as you saw right there, and if you didn't understand what you just saw, I'll explain, was that we actually jumped in, hit Vegeta with the overhead heavy, hit him with the light, And then we actually hit him with the first part of the medium, but the second part of the medium actually was blocked. Now, because of the way that the game works and because of the way that this move works as well, is that if you land a hit with the medium, then you can jump cancel that move. So with that all being said, even though the second hit of the medium was blocked, you actually are able to jump over and cross up the opponent, leading to a very, very tricky situation. And then they obviously don't know if you're actually going to stay that same side. Maybe they're not blocking low. I know a lot of people, when they end up blocking something like that, they're just holding straight back, or rather straight back. And so that second hit of the medium might actually open up the opponent, and then you can continue the combo in that way, basically going for a reset. Now, with the 214, you also can kind of cancel into other moves. So this 214 has a lot of startup and can be 2H, as I mentioned. So if you were to do this, then the opponent can easily 2H you. However, if you go maybe like a heavy and then cancel the light version of the flip into the heavy version, then you can catch the opponent trying to push a button there. Or if they push something like a light attack. But normally this would actually be hit, as you can see there. Now the medium version of it is a bit faster, as you can see there, actually crossing up the opponent. But this just leads into a ton of different mind games. After that, we have Autonomous Fist. So this is going to be only usable in the air, and it's going to look pretty familiar to you guys. So this is going to be what it looks like, and it is going to be obviously extremely similar to Jiren's 236 as well. Now mind you, Jiren can do his on the ground as well. For UI Goku, this is going to have a varying startup, 11 frames for the light version, 15 for the medium version, and then the heavy version 11 frames as well. So this move is going to be what you're typically going to go into for your enders, as in it will give you a sliding knockdown. And the rest of it's pretty simple, actually. Then you move on to him having a Kamehameha. Now, it's not like the other Kamehamehas, though. He actually does a flip, but he flips forward and he flips backward. So keep this in mind whenever that you are looking at choosing an option. From what I can tell, I think more people are probably actually going to benefit from doing the backwards version of it, because it actually will prevent you from overshooting the opponent, but that's just my opinion. And if you think that UI didn't have enough tools, well, we have another one for you. We have down, down, S, which is going to be 2-2-S, and that is actually going to be a DP. So this is going to be fully invincible. It's going to be his reversal option, so if there's a gap and you're wanting to do something, then this is actually going to be it. It hits extremely high. I'll try to show that as best as possible. Actually sending the projectile all the way up. Now, mind you, the projectile does obviously have kind of a travel speed to it, so it's not going to be instant or anything like that, but that is going to be an option that he has in combination with everything else. Finally, to wrap it up, we have the supers. We have Accelerating Battle Spirit, and this is going to be a level 1, which you can actually go into the level 2, which is Unpolished Instinct if you just hold down the R1 or R2. So just to show that real quick, it teleports anywhere on the screen to actually find the opponent, which we see it right there, and then holding down the button or just tapping it will grant you the follow-up for that move. After that, we do have a counter level 1, which is going to be Guiding Impulse, and this is actually going to be performable in the air as well. So this is going to cost 1 bar, and it is going to be frame 1 invincible. And there you go. You cannot follow up on this. It is a super. Think of it similar to Vidal's. Obviously, you can get a lot of damage if you actually just spend the bar on it and go into any other specials, because it is going to be a raw level 1. Because it is a counter, it is going to do a lot of blue health, so keep that in mind. You might not want to rely on this very often, but it is an option for you to have. And then wrapping it up, we have Silver Dragon Flash. Now, a very fancy name. This is just going to be his level 3. It is going to be performable in the air, and it will side swap as well. And that's going to be it for now, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching this video. Please make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I will be making a B&B combo guide for UI Goku within the next day or two, so make sure to come back around for that. I'll see you guys then.